everyone, welcome to Sprinkle Some Love with a Cause by Trisha Mullin. Today we have Danielle Mroz here. She suffers from Interstititis, which is also known as IC, for those of you who don't know. Welcome, Danielle. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good today.
Good. So what I kind of want to do is start off at where you noticed something wasn't right with your body and when your journey started for you.
Okay, well, when I noticed something wasn't right with my body, it was actually after I had my second born son. I went in for a tubal ligation, and a surgical accident occurred, which led to an emergency surgical procedure to basically save my life. They severed an artery, and I believe that they had punctured some other things they had punctured that. So I had a really long recovery from having that. I had a scar from the navel down, and after that I kept on mentioning to my doctors that something wasn't right with me going to the bathroom. It didn't feel right. Something was off, but I was so young. I was only 21, so I just the doctors didn't say anything, and they brushed me off, and I just let that be. And it just was like I had to go to the bathroom more often than what I had before. That urgency that happened.
Yeah, the sense of urgency was picking up, and you weren't really quite sure what.
Yeah, it was just picking up a little bit sooner than I would have liked, and I wasn't pregnant anymore, and that, you can't wait to not be pregnant, so that part goes away.
Yeah, the pressure that it feels like the baby is still sitting in your bladder, but there's no baby anymore.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So you're like, well, wait, why? What is all this going on? Do I have an infection? Do I have a UTI? What's going on? What did I do?
And I never had a UTI. Raising my two little children, I almost died at that time. So that was pretty traumatic, and it took quite a while for that recovery. Dylan was 2.5, and I think Austin was close to 2 months old. So after that, I just kind of continued on raising my boys, and then around 2008 or 2009, I'm not sure what might have caused this to come up so much, but I've heard that the artificial sweeteners can be really bad for some people that have IC. So I was living with somebody who was diabetic, and I started trying to cook better and make better meals and drinks for that person. And that may have been what the trigger was, but I started having to go to the bathroom like 60 times a day at night. I mean, I literally did not have a stream of urine at all. I was just drips, and my periods had gotten really bad too as well. So then finally I had to go to the doctor, and as you can imagine, I didn't like going to the doctor much after that procedure went wrong and I almost died. So when I did go in, of course they found things wrong, and I ended up having to get a hysterectomy because there had been a trauma that happened to my uterus.
And what was that?
They told me that could have happened during childbirth, but I find that hard.
What was the trauma that it consisted of needing surgery, though, to repair?
Yeah, no, they didn't at the time say that there was anything wrong. When I gave birth, it was a normal birth. That's what led me to kind of think that maybe my uterus had also been punctured.
Okay.
Because people get endometriosis. Well, I had something sort of like that, but it was stuck between the layers.
So it's called adenomyosis?
Endometriosis.
So endometriosis or adenomyosis, because they are two
that's what it was.
separate.
It was adenomyosis.
Yes, I have endo and adenomyosis. That's why I knew right away when you said outside of the uterus. I know exactly about that. So you obtained that from the obstruction in your uterus or it being punctured?
Right. The doctor who performed the surgery to remove my uterus said it could have happened during childbirth. I mentioned the surgery with the tubal, and she just kept repeating that, probably from childbirth. So after that, she wanted me to see a urologist as well, and she had scheduled for a urologist to go in surgery at the same time with her, so that they could team up, and it would make it less traumatic for me. He could look inside my bladder, and she did all of those things, because she suspected I had something with my bladder. I didn't know what that was yet.
Okay.
But the urologist that day had been sick, and I had only met with him once, not even on an appointment. She just wanted me to run down and talk to him, and he just asked me if I could sit down and go, try to go pee, so he could kind of
assess the situation.
And he kind of briefly went through this word and said he thought I had something like interstitial cystis, and all I heard was cyst.
Okay. Right, and you're thinking a cyst because you're dealing with endometriosis and adenomyosis.
My pee kept on turning on and shutting out. I wasn't getting a stream of pee, so I said, well, so is that why? Is there like bobbles or something inside my bladder that keep... And he said, oh, no. Well, he was sick the day of that surgery, and I just honestly, I got enough relief to where I was going to the bathroom 10 times a day, or getting up like maybe 10 times at night to 5 times at night from how many times before. And I thought, you know what? He had said also sometimes your bladder just shrinks and they don't know why. And that's about all he had said about it. And I thought, well, I've had 2 kids. Not a big deal. I can live with this.
Right.
And
that's what we tell ourselves. And then we realize that what we've been telling ourselves isn't quite true. So when did you get there? And when did you realize, no, I'm going back in and he's fixing this?
Oh, I'm a stubborn one. So I decided to move to Arkansas with my husband. His children lived out there, and it was easier for me to move with my kids and get established out there, and for us to do back and forth that way. So I got to Arkansas, and that's where I realized, oh my gosh, there's no health care really here. What am I going to do? So I established with the local doctor, and I was able to just get the sertraline that they had put me on as, basic treatment. It seems like that's what they always want to put people on, and it really helped me with my anxiety and just a whole bunch of other things, which overall helped. So I continued on working, and it's kind of funny to say that I felt like it snuck up on me.
Yeah, because you're living your day-to-day life and you don't realize the differences.
I traveling back and forth, I had to plan every bathroom trip. I mean, it really started to control every aspect of my life, but just a little bit at a time. And it's funny how easily we can get used to things that aren't normal.
Right.
And make them normal really fast. So I ended up canceling plans or not being able to go with things with my kids, so like Silver Dollar City, because I couldn't walk around that long and needing to use the bathroom all the time. And my stubbornness about, there was no doctors around there. The closest I could get to a regular hospital that could help me was 4.5 hours away in Little Rock. So one day I had a barbecue. We had a party for my birthday, and we did a smoker cookout. And a friend of mine had made Jell-O shots out of moonshine because I didn't like to drink. Obviously, that causes you to have to go to the bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
And she'd asked me why I didn't like to drink, and I had told her, well, I just have to go to the bathroom too much. So she said, well, how about I make this? And I said, well, sure, let's do that. That'd be fun. I didn't realize at the time that a perfect storm of events was about to happen. I'd also had a head cold, and I was taking some decongestion medications. Decided to eat healthier and was eating a lot of citrus, just all the bad things at once. And I loved to drink Mountain Dew, of course, at that time.
So you were living like a wild child.
just for that one day. For that one day, I did. I didn't really ever drink or anything, and then I hadn't had a cookout in a really long time. But I had started the bladder guard, I guess I would call it, and my husband at the time was getting upset with me. The kids would get upset with me. They were getting older. They were in their teens. And anytime anybody would move anywhere on the couch or come to sit down, I would put my hand up to block them and say, "Don't bump my bladder." And there was like I said, there was no medical care. I lived in a rural part of Arkansas, so I just kind of kept going back and forth from work. I was a CNA, and I switched my job to being a PCA to help me be able to manage my symptoms. It's easier if you're in somebody's home and you can use the bathroom and you have one client, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So then I woke up the next morning and I was in some pain that I'd never experienced before, and I just closed my eyes and I tried to say, "This is just a fluke. This is going to go away."
You try to talk yourself out of that.
Yeah, this is a fluke. This can't be real. Well, the next day passed, the next day passed, the next day passed. And I was an active member in my church community. I didn't miss a Sunday of church. As a family, we cleaned the 2 churches in town every weekend. We did everything together. I loved the little town that we lived in. It was amazing. The people were amazing.
So at this point, when did you finally decide that this isn't acceptable? Like, and where did you go for help, since there doesn't seem like there's help back home at that time? Where did you go? What did you do?
My husband had said if I didn't go to the hospital or go to the doctor's, to the clinic, the little clinic, that he was going to take me to the ER when he got home from work.
Oh, forget the ER. They don't know nothing about this. I'm not going there.
You're right. So I had a girlfriend take me up to a clinic that was up in another town up, and there was a doctor there. She did my exam, and I was in such excruciating pain. Just the ride, because we lived on such a bumpy road, most vehicles couldn't get down our driveway. That was, almost a mile long. So my friend was like, I don't want you to throw up in my car or anything. And, she'd seen how I looked like I was ready to throw up. And she said, they have shots and stuff for nausea and stuff. You should ask them to do that. And, well, during the exam, the doctor pressed down on my bladder. She asked me where I hurt, and I said, my bladder. And she said, "Oh, yeah, where exactly do you think your bladder is?"
She wants you to show her where you think your bladder is, yep.
I was like, "Whoa, this lady is not very nice." And I pointed where my bladder is, and she was like, "Oh, yeah, that is." And so she proceeded to do like a pelvic exam and push on the outer of my belly. And when she pushed on my bladder, I sat up straight up and just screamed. And so she did a urine culture.
Okay.
And the urine culture, she told me that I had no sign of infection. And I told her, "Yeah, I told you that I wouldn't have an infection. I never do. They always check me." Because every time I did have an appointment, I mentioned my bladder hurt. And they would do the
culture.
The urine test. And I wouldn't have a UTI. So that would just be it. And this just happened for all of these years, anywhere I was. And she mentioned that there was some blood and some small mucus visualized in it.
Ding, ding, ding. So what did she do with that evidence?
You would think ding, 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 right?
I do.
But this doctor had, immediately her first concern with me had been, why Yankees have to move down south and they can't stay where they had come from. I was northern, and this is a southern doctor. So anyway, she gave me my shot and she sent me home. After
what the heck does where you come from? Yankee, no Yankee Doodle, none of that.
Yeah,
what does that have anything to do with my medical?
Any kind of issues like that still anywhere in the South.
So
at all. I didn't even know what does Yankee mean. because
I don't even know what Yankee means, to be honest.
That was weren't even here yet before they came after the Civil War.
Honestly, when I hear Yankees, I think of a baseball team, to be honest. And I want to say they play for the New York, which has nothing to do with down south.
Right.
But
that was the first time I had gotten that kind of prejudice there. So my experience was very traumatic because.
So I just went into a total lockdown when I heard that. So wait. Repeat her comment to me one more time. Her comment about the mucus and stuff, and her response was, "Why do what?"
During the conversation, she was more interested in why Yankees moved down south and they couldn't stay where they'd come from. And I said, because this is America and we can live anywhere we choose to live in this country.
Wow.
When I was on my way out, she mentioned nothing. She said I had no infection. She could make a referral for me to a urologist, and she gave me a shot for
nausea
and a Toradol shot. I'd never experienced pain like this before in my entire life, and she told me that I was going to have to wait probably months for this specialist to come, and she looked right at me and she said, "And I am not going to give you pain pills because I know you're just here trying to make me give you pain medicine."
This is my first, this isn't even what I'm here for, and you obviously just discovered some other stuff.
I almost fell over backwards. I just couldn't even believe it. And when I was walking out, it was such a small clinic, and there was just one receptionist lady at the front, and I heard her ask, she was freaked out because she's seen how sick I was. I scared myself.
So then why did you just give me a shot of Toradol if you think I'm just here for pain meds? You just already gave in to what you said you weren't going to do then, ma'am. Obviously, you must feel my pain is real if you just gave me a shot of Toradol, because I can get that in a prescription form and go home and take the pill. You gave me the shot on the spot because you felt like the pain was dire needed.
Yes, exactly.
You just contradict yourself in your own medical opinion and analysis of me being a pain seeker. You wouldn't obviously give the pain seeker medication and then tell the pain seeker, this won't continue. Either I have a legal right to get my pain meds or I don't. Which one is it?
Right. And at that time I hadn't even asked her.
Yeah.
For anything like that. And when I went in to do my urine sample, I remembered looking in the mirror and being afraid because of my complexion and the way my pupils looked. I believe I was close on the verge of just being in shock because of how bad this was. And when I walked out, the receptionist lady, I heard the sound in her voice. She was really freaked out, and she asked the doctor what was wrong with me. And doctor, I didn't hear her response or anything. But shortly after that, she'd ordered me a CT scan, and I went to the local nearby hospital. It's a pretty small one. They did the CT scan, and of course, on the outside of the CT scan, you can't see inside your bladder. So she proceeded to call me up and tell me that she was taking my referral to the urologist back because there was no need, as there was nothing wrong with me. And I freaked out. I just couldn't believe that this lady had said that. And I was crying. Actually, she had the receptionist call me, and I told her, that is exactly why I need the specialist. I said, the specialist is for when the doctor doesn't know what is wrong.
And how are you going to bully me like that and then threaten to take back a referral you gave?
Right. So I think the receptionist realized that doctor was wrong, and she must have just kept the appointment there for me. But I feel like the doctor was just being mean to me because I was a Yankee. In the meantime, I was calling and begging and pleading for help. I needed in somewhere sooner, and I started calling the urologist office every day to see if I could get an appointment. It got to the point where I actually had to take an ambulance in to get to the hospital because I was so limp and I couldn't move. I had never I never thought that pain could kill the person. I really didn't. And, you got to remember, I didn't know what was wrong with me because I didn't even hear the word I can't even pronounce it now.
Interstititis or IC?
You're right. I always, sometimes your bladder shrinks a little. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is how many years ago? And this is 2016 at the time. I let something go and I did not follow up on it.
So you start doing the why me, or how did I do this to myself, or
I didn't know what it was, but I knew it had to be something.
What did I do? Because I did this. I know I did. I did it.
Yeah.
But
and now this is bad because your body's response to something, to tell you something's wrong, is pain, and this was so bad. I'd never experienced anything, not even close, and I've been through a lot in my life.
Yeah, delivering 2 children alone, you definitely know pain, if not anything else.
Getting me in. And so anyhow, I had called my pastor and his wife and asked them if they would meet me at the hospital. The doctors there, apparently my primary care doctor had called them and told them that I was, a drug seeker. So when I got to the hospital, they took my urine sample, and my pastor and his wife was by me, and they came back and they told me that my urine was the darkest brown they ever seen.
Which means your kidneys at this point.
I had a urinary tract infection.
Yeah, if not a kidney infection as well.
I peed in that cup. I saw my own urine. It was a flat out lie, and I was humiliated to the point that I didn't even speak up because I couldn't believe. I was in shock and horror over this. So it was a very bad experience.
Yes, and I'm so sorry that this doctor did that to you, because it doesn't even make sense for her to want to do that.
I went through, I know I had sent you a video. It's about like a ballet dance interpretive of what I see or bladder and pelvic pain can do to you. Watching that, it felt like somebody made that based off of what I went through for 7 months. I would lay in my bed as still as I could. I couldn't move at all. I couldn't squeak anything because the pain would get worse, and I'd try to imagine myself outside myself in my bed. By the time I did get treatment and it was all said and done, it took me 3.5 years just to be able to walk into Walmart and pick one movie and walk out. I could not walk. My health, that's how far my health had deteriorated.
So at this point, I know that depression or anxiety of everything that we incur from this affected you, I'm sure. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Yeah.
How did that affect you?
I find it's really amazing to me. I when I think about this and I recall this, the resiliency of my spirit through this because of my faith in the Lord and God. I just kept on repeating to myself and saying it out loud that God must really, really love me because he would never let me suffer in such a way if it wasn't for a really, really good reason. And I just kept saying that, and I believed that. I believed that with all of my heart. There were points when I didn't think I was going to survive at all, and I was terrified. One day, I read on the internet, because that was my only way of looking to find out what was wrong, that this IC could be more painful than even terminal bladder cancer. That's when I knew that I wasn't going to die. It wasn't from a doctor or anybody else, because I had still been waiting. I knew that my pain was that bad that, okay, there we go. So I'm going to be okay. And the first urologist that I did, when I finally got to see him, I begged him to just look in my bladder, look in there right now. And he said, well, I can do that right now in the office, but we generally don't see anything. And he said, but that's not that you're saying your pain is not real. So he proceeded to go in.
But he identified the fact that your pain is real and related with you, which is so important compared to the last doctor. So the amount of comfortability right there is just like, okay, maybe I'm on the right track with you. Maybe you will get me to where the answer or diagnosis. it gives you faith again. So with that faith, where did that lead you?
Well, he actually that day, I didn't have to wait. I didn't want to wait, so he did the cystoscopy right there. And he went inside my bladder, and as he was speaking, saying those things, he stopped mid-sentence and his jaw dropped. And his mouth opened and shut a few times, and then he spoke really quickly to his assistant and said they needed to pull the equipment from me immediately because there's no way I could tolerate that. And then he told me that he'd never seen a bladder like that. From every angle, every which way that he was looking, my bladder was completely red.
Yes.
And with inflammation. And he'd never seen that before.
Okay.
Then he stepped outside of the office or out of the room where my husband was, and I heard him yelling at my husband, telling him that I was to be under no emotional distress whatsoever, and that I was clearly in emotional distress, and he could see that, and that under no circumstances was I to be under any sort of emotional distress. And then he came back in and he told me that this might be forever, that I needed to go home and I needed to start this elimination diet. He gave me some, the basic.
So did you have
medication to follow protocol?
Did you have the catheter with the potassium put into it?
No, he refused to do that, even though I begged him to, because I wanted the diagnosis. I just wanted it to be done and over. I wanted the diagnosis.
He refused to because of how much it burns and hurts, and the fact that your bladder that he physically could see already with the naked eye at this point.
Before he went in, he said, "I just don't do that because I see no reason to make a patient climb through the roof to the ceiling. It's barbaric." That's what he had told me. And okay. I said, "Well, I'm in so much pain. I really doubt anything could make it worse." I was not afraid whatsoever. I was just like...
Well, it does. I don't know if you've ever had one... I don't know if you've ever had one done yet to this day or not.
Yeah.
But...
well, I'm very grateful he did not. He did not
I thought the same thing. And the minute that she put just a spit of fluid into my bladder... I was ready. I tried to jump off that table, forgot I had a catheter in my vagina, and I almost ripped the mouth out. I was like, "Whoa, no, what's going on?" She's like, "Oh, that's a positive. We don't need to do no more." I was like, "What's a positive? What did we just do?" I was floored, and she was like, "Hold on." And I was doing regular catheters at that time, and she was, to help me, and she was telling me that she wanted to do that to see if it was interstititis, and, it was just a simple in-office procedure. I'm like, oh, well, normally the other ones would soothe my bladder. This was the opposite. It was like someone took a lighter and lit the inside of my bladder on fire, but with an itching, burning, throbbing, numbing pain sensation, like the baby's sitting on the bladder while it's on fire, and someone's stabbing me, maybe. I don't know. That was
That's so cool getting to be able to talk to somebody else who has been through some of these same similar experiences.
And for adenomyosis,
like when other people.
Yeah. When you said the adenomyosis thing, adenomyosis, I don't know if anybody else out there with interstititis has it, but it attaches itself to the outside of your organs and then tries to pull them towards your pelvis wall. And then it depletes the organ. I don't know how else to describe it, but when you already have a disease inside of the organ and then a separate disease that creates tumors or cysts or fibroids or creates these abnormal things and these spiderweb tissues that are called scar tissues that pull your organs outside, it is painful, double painful. So you think someone with interstititis has pain, then you add adenomyosis to the organ as well. You're in double pain. You're in constant given birth labor / UTI kidney failure pain.
Absolutely, that's what it was like.
Yes.
It was, and I didn't want to take pain medications my whole life. I never wanted
But
to take those.
adenomyosis, there's nothing else. Adenomyosis, the only thing that's going to get rid of that is a form of a narcotic, or burning it or freezing it. Burning it or freezing it. And freezing it, you can only be so cold before your skin is literally numb and you got frostbite, so we can't do that. And burning it, I would put rice socks on, and it would help to an extent, but you can only get them so hot before we literally burn our skin. That the amount of heat that I would apply to the outside of my skin, some people would be like, oh my God, you're crazy. I'm like, oh, it feels so good. But as soon as the heat's no longer there, you're like, oh my God, whoa, I need to go microwave that again. And you're constantly dealing with pain meds and heating elements to try to take away that. And that's when you're on your period, or you're ovulating, A or B. So you have like a 2-week process where it's more like birth-like pain than interstititis pain. So for 4 weeks out of the month, which is the whole month, you're sick. But for 2 weeks of it, you're like a kidney and bladder infection with flu-like symptoms. And then
you're saying it exactly.
Yep. The second 2 weeks,
I could forget, and I can just like block that.
I'm going to put it into words that you probably never thought of. The second 2 weeks are like labor-like symptoms while we're ovulating and menstruating. Our body is affected from those hormones from the ovaries, specifically from adenomyosis. So as your ovaries and your follicles on your ovaries are activating and working, we are hurting you, stabbing you in the whole process. So normal people never feel themselves ovulate. I know the moment I'm ovulating, the moment my body is starting to go through these trials and tribulations, I'm ovulating. And I know the moment that I'm done ovulating and my real period is here. And I know the moment my real period is over and we're going through like that down phase. So like the next week, my body's going through an adjustment. And then I have a week of glory with, kidney pain and bladder, but I call that glory because that's what we call normal. Like you said, you're so used to just defining what normal is. So I go through a week where I say, oh, it's normal for me to have, burning when I urinate, or pain in my back, or pressure on my bladder, or peeing 10 times a night and 50 times a day, 60 times a day. That's just normal. Oh, by the way, peeing a half a cup in 10 minutes and a half a cup in another 10 minutes and a half a cup in another. Why can't I just pee 1.5 cups right now? Like, why do I got to do it in segments? My bladder's full.
Oh, I'm so glad for you that you had a better understanding for yourself of your of your body,
so
to know what was happening.
Learning that
I was so sick, I never could keep employment. I get fired every time my period came around.
Yep, and
you can keep somebody who's going to be sick and not be able to come into work.
Adenomyosis is a struggle, and whenever you're on your period, you are literally glued to the floor in a ball, crying, rocking, and totting, and looking for anything that will fix the problem. And that is when I'm a pain seeker. I don't take pain meds to this day, but I also don't have a uterus, and I only have one ovary. So I don't even have an adenomyosis issue the way that I once did. But when I did, I was at every hospital or doctor office, and I didn't care. I didn't want meds or pills any other time or a shot of nothing. But the moment that
and see, I did have that. Okay, when you mentioned that, I did have several times while I was living in my home state here, where things were so bad that I did go in and to the hospital, to the ER, and they would hook me up immediately with the drippy drip type thing. Mm-hmm. That's what I expected when I went to Harrison would happen. What happened here.
Right.
And they would manage my pain and get it under control and deal with figuring out whatever this was. But
whatever's going on.
They would get my pain under control, and I would go home, and years could go by, and I wouldn't need to come back in to try, for any sort of...
Right. Well, see, and regular pain seekers aren't like that. They're in there like clockwork every other, no, but I would have sporadic moments where every couple months I would go cry for a couple drugs because I'm in pain. But during those other months, I went so strong with no drugs, and I fought through, and I made sure I didn't take any meds, and I just did the rice sock, and I did this, and I did that. But today, I can't. It's not working.
Yeah, right. And the most horrible thing is going to the ER, expecting a certain degree and quality of care that we've come to expect will be there and has always been there for us in this country. And then to go there and have that not be there when you're in a crisis, in an emergency, and you don't know what's wrong with you. I thought that they would admit me into the hospital in 2016.
Well, no, not without an actual diagnosis.
And the problem with being called a pain seeker was they didn't look any further.
They don't. And when they flag your account with that, that's the sad part about this opiate pandemic, or the drug pandemic, or pill pandemic, as you want to call it, where they just went crazy and people were taking pills, selling pills, getting scripts that they didn't need just to make money, or getting scripts to get high because they didn't want to buy their other drug of choice. That affected us that are sick.
I've seen a lot of that in my working in being a PCA and working for the county.
Well, not only that, but they often move and hop. So the fact that you came from one region and came to another was, suspicious. But none of the less, it's not that it's...
That was okay when I came up here to a degree, because I came back to my hometown and to my doctor that had me my whole life.
Yes, well, that's when you got back to good health care, because they know you and they understand your body. See, when your name is flagged like that, what I was trying to say is it ruins those for who are truly sick. Just because, people are sick doesn't mean that they're not entitled to these things. When we're sick and we're coming to I wouldn't be at the hospital. I would go to my regular doctor. I have a specialist for this. I would be at the specialist office. But today it's to the point that I'm not waiting at the specialist. It's an emergency. That's why I'm at an emergency room. The only time someone that is truly sick takes themselves to an emergency room randomly like that is when they really are at their like they think they're dying, or their pain is so unmanageable.
Yeah,
and
exactly. I thought
regular pain seekers have a whole nother script, like MO to them, and motive, and the way that they move, that you don't actually even fit that. But the sad part is if the doctor doesn't like you, they put you into that category as well, which screws you, because I'm your actual patient and I'm here for a sickness. And when a doctor flags your account for that, you're like, for what? Like, you're not even, I love doctors that actually have the disease, because they understand your fight so much more. When they don't have the disease and they're looking at you and judging, how are you treating a disease, but then you're going to judge the patients you treat? Without me, your bills wouldn't be paid. You wouldn't have a practice. You wouldn't even be able to continue to move forward with whatever it is you're treating, without us being sick with this disease. So you should be here helping us, the sick people. That's why you're here. When they go into a profession that they really don't actually care about the patients, that is the outcome you see. It was what you recently went through in whatever state that was, where they don't care, or they often, brushed you off and they say you're this or you're that without actually learning you. If the woman would have took any time with your file, or even got your medical records transferred from one state to another.
I had never been to the ER ever once. Had I ever been to the ER and asked for pain medication? I had been sick and been to the ER, and I had even been injured. But I never asked for pain medication and never got pain medication. It wasn't
right. And then for people with adenomyosis and interstititis, pain medication should be a given. We shouldn't have to feel some type of way or have anxiety now about, well, even though I'm in a lot of pain, honey, I don't want to go to the hospital because of what happened last time. They're just going to do the same thing. I'd rather sit here, cry, curl up in a ball, and have you leave me alone. Please get out the room while I cry. Bye. So you're like, wait, that's not normal. Like, babe, get up. I want to help you. There's no help. You're irritating me. Just leave. And you just kind of want to be alone in your pain, to pray to God that you don't die out on the way to whenever this pain's going to end. And we shouldn't feel like that. We should be able to say, no, honey, you can take me to the hospital. No, hon, we can get in the car and go. Yes, they will help. But when you're that sick and in that much pain, they don't help. And they often do accuse people of being pain seekers. And here's the thing. This is why, which this is the part that's really hard to bite, is not every doctor is equipped to treat these patients. They don't know what interstititis is. Some of them don't even know what adenomyosis is. They're like, you mean endometriosis? No, I'm saying adenomyosis with an A, not an E. And there's a D, not an N. It's adenomyosis. And they're like, huh?
I found I've had to educate. I'm more educated than my doctors are, and I educate them.
So how can you help me if you don't even know what it is I have? So of course I'm a pain seeker, because you don't even know that adenomyosis causes pain. The word adenomyosis is literally nothing but pain. Okay.
Yeah, the whole world like turned upside down on itself, and I felt very betrayed by my country. Even my time of need, when I was the most trouble, I felt like they were attacking, like the whole country had turned and was attacking.
You feel like the medical field is teaming up and having conversations and meeting about you and how to screw you over instead of helping you. And wait, if you guys have time to have a meeting about how...
They literally are trained like that.
Yes.
What happened to me, what it did for me, like I said, I felt like, yeah, God must really, really love me for me to endure all this. Well, it lit a fire inside of me that I was going to get justice for what had been done. People would be, if I survived it, people would be held accountable. I would figure this out. And
I like that. I want to hear about that. So how did you figure that out, and what did you figure out? And how did you make them be accountable? I'm sure we have a few listeners that would be dying to hear that right about now, because they have a couple doctors while we were talking that they were thinking of.
Right. Well, see, in my case with this doctor, she had mistaken me. I didn't know this until later, because when I did go back in and I finally had the diagnosis after the specialist, she said to me, "Oh, so it was what I thought it was." And I thought,
wait, what? You thought it was this and never once tested me or mentioned it or gave you off? You tried to repo your referral. You called me a pain seeker. So now you want to take credit for somebody else's work, is what you're telling me, because it don't sound like you really thought it was that. But continue.
Yeah, and so I just thought, okay, well, I'm just gonna let this go then. As long as she's not mean to me anymore and she doesn't treat me poorly, okay. Fine.
Let her think what she wants. Let her think what she wants.
Okay. And so then at that point, then because she had taken away, I had been on a clonazepam for, I don't know, 8 years. She'd even taken that away from me.
So you went through withdrawals and your body went through an adjustment period that she sat back and laughed at you during that?
Yeah. And so I finally got that medication back, and then she'd given me a small script for some pain medications, and I was like, okay, this is much better.
We're getting somewhere now.
But the next appointment, it would be, her attitude would be totally different, and I figured out she had mistaken me for somebody else.
So during all this time that she's mistreating you, she doesn't...
And then she'd treat me nice. She was thinking I was two different people. Because when I came in, she looked at me and she said, "Your mother was just up here today," and I told her, "I am not giving you any pain medications." And I went, my mom lives in Minnesota. I totally was flabbergasted at that, and she was a little bit older, and I started to pick up on some things, and I figured she kind of had dementia. She was a new doctor hired in because they had nobody in that area.
Okay.
But I still really have malice towards her, but what her actions did and her mental state did, it caused me tremendous bodily harm. I felt...
Yes, not only that...
I still feel like...
it's traumatizing.
If I'd been treated properly immediately when something was wrong with aggressive pain medication, because distress is a number one... It creates a cycle for IC.
Yes.
And that inflammation. And I couldn't get off of it, that cycle.
Not only that, but I just want to say this. As a doctor, I don't care if you got 9,000 patients. There is a chart on the door before you walk in, and you grab it and you actually take it back over to your little station that's generally in the hallway, and you reanalyze it and you look at things at where you left off, and you update yourself on that patient and its chart before you walk into a room with the patient. Or you walk in the room with the chart and you update it. As the patient is updating you, you're going through the chart, cross-referencing with what the patient is saying, what we did previously, and the notes that I had as a doctor that I put into the file. your own notes, and you're going over these things each time. So every visit that you walked into there, I'm not understanding how she's mistaken, because I can guarantee you on that other girl that she thought you were, allegedly, she had written all over that girl's file 1,000,001 thoughts and comments about her and her mother, and the fact that the two of them are tag teaming her.
She did that to me as well, and it followed me over to that other hospital, which I found out later because I started doing advocacy. I thought, okay, people don't know what IC is.
But when she first put that note in there, that the fact of the matter is it was never present before, which means she should have known right then when she got in her chart that this wasn't the same patient before I started writing new notes, because the old patient, when I updated the charts, would have been all about this or that, the pain seeker this, the pain seeker that. There was none of that in your chart before that. So honestly, dementia is definitely a thing. And it's really sad when doctors get dementia and they don't want to realize they have it, or that they're having a memory issue, or that their vitamins are low, or they're malnutritioned, because at the end of the day, our life is in their hand, and more than our own, because half the time we don't even know our own body. And how are we supposed to know about interstititis or what it is? That's why I'm here crying to you. You're supposed to be the one with all the answers, and when you can't even remember who I am, how are you supposed to save my life?
Exactly. That is why I followed through with my complaints, and I followed through to the end, because whether or not it was I had sympathy and empathy for her, but if that was a danger to me and to others, and it could not continue. And and I did some follow-up questions with the other hospital that I had been taking the ambulance to, and when I started to learn more information and really start to advocate for myself, and I called them up and I asked them if they considered pain to be a treatable medical condition, because there is a point when it's not just your IC or your disease or whatever illness that you have.
Yeah, and most states now do pain management.
There comes a point in time when pain can become such a degree that it in itself becomes its own medical emergency that needs to be addressed.
Yes, when your pain levels are that high, you can go into a cardiac arrest. You can go. There's lots of other issues. So, there's a program now out here that after the whole epidemic of the overusing pain medications, they created a program out here called pain management. And in order to get any type of pain medication or any type of narcotic for a long period of time, more than I think a 7-day use, you have to go see your pain management specialist, and your primary care provider or your specialist or your regular doctor or your regular, DH doctor, PhD doctor, they are not allowed to prescribe those medications anymore. Only a pain management specialist. They actually have a whole doctor now that's job is to manage your pain for these specific diseases, because doctors after so many years of treating, people with certain diseases, you lose this sense of understanding and connection with patients, where you learn what patients are truly, in pain and which ones aren't. They don't have enough time to spend with the patients, where pain management is specifically for that. Not only that, but they also do rehabilitation services to help you, which is very great, because if there's
so many aspects to having these diseases. Like, so if the one doctor has to deal with trying to take care of just the pain aspect of it, that's a whole thing in itself. But there's other parts of the diseases too that need to be treated. So it's almost like, adopting a system of how you treat cancer, and they have all the different physicians. That's almost what we need.
It is, and the pain management doctor will help with that. But the sucky part about that is, with the pain management doctor, you often have to wait so long to get in, because their office is so busy, because they're not just treating patients with one disease, they're treating patients with multiple diseases. So they have, everyone from the cancer's office, everyone from the rheumatology office, everyone from the orthopedic office, everyone from your endocrinologist, your, anything that you would prescribe a pain med for. So their offices are way overbooked. So you're waiting 3 months, 6 months to go get a pain med. I can't wait that long.
I find it to be very disappointing as well, because every state is different now and has different laws and regulations and different agendas.
Yep, and I can't wait that long when I'm in serious pain, and I don't need you to manage it. I just need my monthly meds when I'm in my monthly pain.
Well, now I've noticed. See, I really became my own advocate. I had to. My healthcare is my. I'm the only one who's going to care as much as anybody else.
No one loves you better than you.
I never had a support system at all. So, which is probably why it led to things becoming as bad as it did, and me not knowing what was wrong with me. Because, I mean, everybody in my family had told me I just need more fresh air. I need to get out and walk more. I mean, all of those things. So,
right.
when I got into my advocacy, it really helped me, and I went into the pain advocacy as well. I started out with the IC.
Okay.
And so I learned a lot of things about what was happening with the changes and going through my experiences. I had clients that had told me that they had DEA in their doctor's office with them down south.
Yes.
And I was like, that's odd. And that was before I was even sick. And I was like, that's weird, you know?
Yeah, down south, the pandemic and epidemic for their for pain meds was very stronger, and the DA did get involved a lot more down there before they up here. Now the FDA regulates and does pain management up here. So
I just thought, how crazy is that, though? I mean, what about patient privacy? How can they be in the clinic inside of the room with you while you're, doing your appointment with your doctor? But that's literally what they had told me. So
yeah, well, that particular person must have been flagged too many times and might have been actually caught previously given meds. So at this point, the person
very, very likely, because I mean, in that small community where I was, it was very well known that there was veterans out there that had PTSD who they really wanted what they wanted was marijuana.
Mm-hmm. And it wasn't legal yet out there, so
the doctors would give them their pain medications, but they wouldn't. They couldn't afford off of whatever the small amount. That's where I saw the problem.
Well, yeah, and they saw the problem as well, and now they won't let you.
They would trade and sell their pain medications in order to get the marijuana.
Yep, and that screwed it up for a lot of us sick people who actually use those pain meds for the pain that we're actually in. Where marijuana does help with the pain. I also am a marijuana smoker myself, but out here, because of the issue that you just brought up in those other states, they now make you choose between the two, and you're not legally allowed to be on one or the other. It's a choice of one or the other.
I really wish that the marijuana would have worked for me, because you know what? I really wouldn't have cared about the law.
So for you, marijuana will work for you.
I would have done it. Whether it's illegal or not, just anything for the relief.
Well, now you're back in Michigan, aren't you?
I'm in Minnesota.
No, you're still in Minnesota. Is it legal there?
Marijuana has never been okay
for me. Well, CBD, if you do it in a liquid form.
I did try CBD.
Have you tried it in a liquid form or marijuana Kool-Aid, not an actual smoking form? Because here's the thing. Think about food and consumption of the things we were discussing earlier. When it goes to your lungs, it's a different part of your body. When it goes to your bladder, it's a different part. When it goes, if you can get it in a liquid form and to stay in a liquid form and make it to your bladder, that would only be a beverage. So if you could get a Kool-Aid or a tea or a tincture, and then you add.
I had drops in my. The pain management doctor had told me to go ahead and try the CBD, and the pain management doctor gave recommendations to my primary, so my primary could follow up. So I had purchased these CBD drops from a friend of mine who was selling things like this, and I failed my drug test.
Yep.
One day.
And then you won't get no medication anymore because it's one or the other.
I was told what to do with the remaining of my medications that I had to teeter down.
Okay.
And I went without any pain medications for a full month, and I didn't lose my job. I'm so proud of myself.
I'm proud of you too, because I remember what you said earlier, that every time that would happen, you would lose a job. So for you to also be able to be off of the pain medications and still work and not lose your job and bear through the pain.
The issue was I began to decline so quickly. It was unbelievable. The little local store, I try to stay in a small town where I can be close to things because of the traveling and the pain, all the issues we deal with.
Correct.
I was breaking the wheels off of shopping carts from leaning on it so hard. I'd be walking and suddenly this is the most bizarre thing. I don't know if you've ever experienced this or anybody else who's had really severe IC, but the pain literally can drain you, and you don't even realize that you're not walking around saying, "Owie, owie, I hurt," or anything like that. It's not even a thought for me in my head, but suddenly my body just slows down, and I can't walk or move or even really hold myself up anymore.
Yeah, the energy becomes depleted.
The grocery store. So at that point, I also started to go into shock because of fear to go ask for pain medication up here because my mother had passed away suddenly, and it was extremely stressful. And 3 of her brothers raped directly after that, and it was such a shock. I ran out of my pain medications, and I was too afraid to ask because of the national database, all of those things.
Right.
I went in for a regular neurological appointment, and she tapped me with some vibrating thing on my ankle, and my whole body I about landed on the floor, and I had been squeezing my stomach kind of hunched over. I felt like my organ, not my organs, but like my tummy muscles were strained. Like I ran, or if you strain your muscles.
Yeah.
And it was odd. I didn't understand it, but she picked up on it, and immediately, and she went and got my primary care doctor and one of my other doctors, and apparently I was starting to go into some sort of a shock of some sort with my liver. That was my liver doing that. It was, I forget what she said, if I was squeezing the blood outwards and to my extremities more. So my nervous system was more reactive. But because of my fear of, asking for more pain medication in the national database, I didn't want red flags or anything. They begged me to never, ever do that again. They said, please do. If you need, you come in. And that was such a relief.
Yes, because the amount of pain that we're discussing puts the stress onto the bladder, and when the bladder is under stress, it causes your other organs to overwork. And when those other organs overwork, sometimes the overwork doesn't need to be done, but it's just working to be working. So now it's depleting other things that don't need to be depleted. And now your body isn't able to use those things that would normally have gotten from the liver because the liver overworked. So today it's not working because it feels like it's done enough work. So it's taking a break, and it doesn't need a break. I need it working. So it goes up and down through like a shock because your body is actually shocked from the amount of pain. And then later the cardiac arrest or malnutrition comes into play. Those would be higher steps. Normally if you would not have understood what was going on with your body at that time or gotten the help for your liver, cardiac arrest would have been your next.
Yes, they were very, very concerned.
It was your next step, and I'm sure that they monitor your heart after that for 6 to 8 months.
My blood pressure was through the roof, and I'd actually went home 3 miles away right after that. I wasn't able to sleep or anything. I mean, I was severely messed up. After my mom's funeral, people kind of scatter, and they say we'll give them some time and some space. That's not what I needed. I couldn't even get out of my bed.
Right, you needed help, you needed support.
Actually, I was in my mother's bed, and I nearly died from shock, from just not having the pain control that I had needed. And that's where I feel like, because of everything everybody's seen on the news, pill mills, opiate epidemic, all this, there's so much prejudice around pain medications, and people do not believe that you can possibly they don't even need pain medications. And pain can affect your body and so severely. If you have pain that doesn't ever cease, and it's a constant, nonstop, the stress it puts your whole entire body under I feel like it's like taking, if you were diabetic and they suddenly said one day you're not going to be able to get insulin anymore.
So actually, it's funny that you brought that up because gastroparesis, which is that other disease that you and I talked about, but you don't have,
Yeah.
when you are a diabetic and you don't get your insulin, you develop a vagus nerve damage, and that vagus nerve damage actually controls your digestive system, which also controls some of the other hormones and goes to your bladder. I do feel that when you're under so much pressure and stress for so long, that you can shock your nerves and damage them and cause permanent damage. So at one point in time, I used to be on so many pain meds from the endometriosis and the adenomyosis and the gastroparesis that pain meds worked great. Well, then at some point, I woke up one day and I didn't need the pain meds anymore. And it wasn't that the pain wasn't there. It's that nerve that used to cause it to be so intensified, I was like burnt out because I had so much pain that I couldn't even produce any more pain. Like, I don't know how to describe that, but like you can burn out your nerves from it. And now like even my teeth broke off in my mouth from like the lupus and the kidney diseases and stuff like that. And when the teeth broke off, I don't feel it. I got a broken tooth right now. I don't feel none of that. I don't feel no pain. My nerves are so bad, dead and messed up and fried out that
doesn't mean that the pain isn't, your body isn't feeling it.
Right. But I think I shorted like some of my pain levels to where just no matter like the average pain to me doesn't nothing. After I had a surgery and like I was supposed to be on my deathbed, the doctor comes in, I'm over here taking snappies and Snapchat, and he's like, "You're supposed to be," I'm like, "I'm doing okay. I mean, they said I got a couple holes in my organs and stuff, but I was waiting for you to get here to see what we're going to do about it." And I'm over here Snapchatting selfies for Facebook, and he's like expecting me to be cried out in pain. And I'm like, I'm not really in pain. I'm just hot and thirsty because I don't like my pain levels were burnt. So you get to a point to where they get fried. And
I feel like that's a blessing for you from God so that you can enjoy your life and be who you are.
Yeah, it can be a blessing, but then it also can be the devil in disguise because pain is a number one identifier to something's not right. Yeah, so now it's harder to identify when something isn't right in my body because now I'm not in pain where I would normally be in pain, or now the doctor doesn't take me seriously because you should be screaming and crying. You're in stage 3 of kidney disease. Why are you not? You have, what are those stupid things? Kidney stones coming out left and right. You're not in pain? No, I don't feel none of that. I had a stone? What do you mean? He's like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, what are we going to do about it? So I've gotten to the point that I'm paying out. I'm so burnt on the level of pain that my body just doesn't produce that type of pain anymore. Like, I still feel when people pinch me or punch me. Like, don't get me wrong, you're not going to slap me and I'm not going to feel that. That's a whole different type of nerve. But
I think I get what you're saying, what you mean, what you're saying, because I think also we might numb out what we're so used to pain, to it always being present somewhere, that eventually you learn you kind of block things out, and you're like, because you gotta, like, you bump your shin and you're like, ow, that hurt, just walk it off, and then later you're like, where did I get that? Ouch.
Yeah, I have bruises like that still to this day all the time.
You totally don't even remember. And I feel like that I do that a lot with other stuff, and so it's actually that is problematic because I'm not as body self-aware then.
Correct.
As well to what's going on, and I know that I have other issues that I need to follow up on, and it's like a career, you have to have it's your career to go to the doctors, and it gets really old.
It's a 9 to 5, and if you're not really good at your job, then it's really, you got over hours and overtime because you're doing extra work. So paying attention to your body and your signs and the symptoms of what's going on with you, finding doctors that are comfortable for you. Your experience was very traumatic and it sucks, and it's shitty. You shouldn't have had to go through that. So I've learned often, as soon as I don't have to prove a point to nobody. I don't have to prove a point to no doctor. And the minute that I feel you're not for me, or I feel like we're not connecting, or like you're not getting my point, and I'm like trying to make you believe me, if I have to make you believe me, you're not for me. If I have to explain to you what the disease is, you're fired. If I have to tell you and you have to Google, if you're using Googleology, we got the same education, bro. You got to go. You're fired, okay? Because you can't help me. I know everything that's out there on the internet. You don't think I've been Googling for 30 years now? I've got more Google experience than you. So, no. If you don't know what adenomyosis or interstititis is, how can you treat it, and how can you understand and relate to me when you're still even learning what it is? I'm not your guinea pig. I've been guinea pig enough. So now I'm just at the point where if I don't feel you're for
I'm
me,
even
you're
specialist.
one visit. I know. Within one visit, I know if I'm firing you or hiring you, or if I'm going to use you until the next bridge. I know if I might be here 5 or 6 visits and then I'm ditching you. I'm going to come here, get my diagnosis. I'm going to come here, get a couple ultrasounds, CAT scans, x-rays, and some blood work. Then I'm going to take that knowledge to someone I connect with because I can see that it's not you. And hopefully before I decide to fire you then, that we do connect and I don't have to. But I just don't see us working out. But you are capable enough to do these exams and to help me figure out. But even in the process of figuring out, if I don't care how educated you are, I don't care where you got your PhD, I don't care if you got 5 of them, 2 of them, or 10 of them. If you and I are not connecting and you're not listening to me and my body, you're not going to ever be able to help me. It's like being in an abusive relationship. You're just going to continue to abuse me mentally, emotionally, or physically, or guinea pig me, and that's still more abuse. I don't want any of that. So my best advice is if you feel like a doctor is not helping you, is identifying you as a pain seeker when you're not a pain seeker. If your doctor is writing notes in your file that aren't accurate, get your file and leave. File your complaints. Yes, read your files and take your files with you whenever leaving state, because had you have taken your files from the beginning, she would have had a broader understanding perhaps as well. So being able to misconstrue you as another person would have even been harder to remember, to do, because she has all of these newfound memories from your new files that she's looking at. So trying to get your doctor to understand your past and your present whenever changing doctors is important. And whenever you move, find doctors before you move, because if you only got a good doctor when you move there,
I wish that I had done that. I had really...
It's a hard not life.
Yeah, I really looked into it. I still find it to be one of the biggest blessings I had, my move down there. My church community, I call them my church family, and the people, other than that doctor, it was the best place to live, and I will carry everything from there with me the rest of my life. And it's made me strong and made me who I am today, so that I know that I'm capable and I can do these things. And it was what I needed at the time.
Yes.
When I moved down there, and I'm really grateful actually for all of my experiences, because I probably wouldn't have found that voice with doctors had I not experienced what it's like to not have good medical care.
Yeah, so with that being said, I know that you and I spoke before we kind of...
I'm grateful for the resources I have now.
Yeah.
And it's not equal everywhere in the country.
So I know you and I kind of spoke before we got on the phone and started recording about, through all of our storms, we've always realized that there's something positive. What was the positive thing that you took from all of these negative stories? What was the positive thing that you're like, I'm so happy that I did go through that, though?
What happened at the time was, I think my husband was, I don't know what he was thinking, but he had found a big box of pictures for me as I was going through my darkest period of time, and I was in my bed, and he threw down this big box of pictures from all the years of my life, and he started to buy me some coloring notebooks and journals and pens and things like that. And I began a process I didn't even realize I was doing. I went through all of these pictures and I found all these moments in my life, and I drew each one that was special to me, and ones where I started to fade away a little bit. And then I drew a picture of what I wished I could feel like my dream. And it's actually in that video. The girl arches back with her back and her arms swung back.
Yeah, I know the video you're talking about.
Of that exact pose with a mint green, cool green butterflies, and she's standing in cool green grass, releasing from her.
You said that video was made for you. You felt like
I'm being pain-free, but that's what I wish I could feel, if I could only, be. And I went through a grieving process, a grief for myself, for my life that I should have had, that I didn't have, for all the losses, for everything all along the way, and I didn't realize that was what was going on. But when I had finished, and I emerged from that, I could barely walk. I mean, I could barely walk. But I felt like I was so excited to go out there in this world and see what I could do, because there was not anything I couldn't do. I felt more enthusiastic and more excited in that I could conquer anything than I did when I went out on my own for the very first time.
Because the moment you set a goal of being healthy, there's the moment things start to change, because you see a light of being healthy. Like, that's at reach. So all I have to do is reach.
It didn't even matter anymore if I wasn't healthy. This is what I was now, and I accepted this. And I just...
Well, we can't accept it. Once you no longer accept the current stage of turmoil that we're in, and that we see opportunity for a pain-free, or opportunity for whatever vision we have, and we start like trying to live towards that vision, that's the moment things start to slowly become better for us. Because if you're mentally okay with, let's just use an abusive relationship for an example. If I'm okay with the fact that he's beating me every day, how is it going to ever change? If I'm okay with the fact that this is like normal, then this will be forever, because this is okay and this is normal. The moment that we identify that this is not okay, this is not normal, I'm going to find a way to get out of this, or I'm going to find a way to go and have those beautiful moments regardless of what's going to go on when I get home, or what's going to go on, then that's the moment that you realize there's a better life, and I'm going to live it. And the moment you start living it and quit accepting it and start living what you feel you want to work towards, or what you feel normal could be, is the moment you slowly start. Part of it is stress, and the stress that we are accepting, this is a stress. It's so stressful just to accept.
To be well.
Yes.
And have people around you who treat you well.
Yes.
I'm divorced now. At the time I was married, and I was in a very abusive marriage. I think what really helped pull me through too was my son Austin was with me. He was in his senior year, and I just wasn't going to miss out on these milestones of his prom, of all of these wonderful things.
That gave you drive, so much drive that you probably...
It really did, and no matter what my ex did to try to break me, he just couldn't.
Because you were strong. Because you were too strong.
To be a mother and to be with my son, and even if it took me 45 minutes to walk into that school because he tried to get out of prom, to make sure that he was going to get to go. I loved every moment of that.
See, that's what I want to hear. That is perfect.
Yeah. My sons have been my greatest joy my whole life. I remember always they always just wanted to be with me. They wanted, and that's the hard part, I'd say, about the condition, is that they were the apple of my eye, and I was the apple of their eye, and they wanted me to be with them, and all the time they wanted me to go with, and yet being in an abusive relationship and not realizing it kind of it makes for sure your illness worse, and also the way you get treated. You don't want to put that stress on your kids. So I would avoid trying to be in those situations. And then with my bladder and fishing and camp, all those things started to be able to be less and less for me to be able to be with them, and it really made me sad. Like they'd go out to Silver Dollar City, and the best I could do for them was let them go with my ex-husband so they could enjoy and have a good day. And they would come home with something nice, a gift or something special for me. And I would always, really appreciate that. But that's what hurts the most, is that
missing out on that bonding
the family
time.
thing, but I don't want my children to be held back in life. They're adults now. My oldest is 25 and my youngest is 22.
Oh, Lord.
And they are independent, and they're on their own, and I know they love me. They know that I love them. Austin is in Colorado now, and we talk and do video chats, and he takes me on video hikes all the time. And that's just, I love the technology. It's really helped
Yes, now you can go on a hike without actually hiking.
And being able to stay in contact and to see him so happy and to see him thriving, it's all that I ever wanted. I just, it's amazing to see them become the people that they are. And
so if they were listening right now, what would you say for being such supportive children? What would you say to them?
Oh, they're my heroes. They are, the day that they were born, I feel like that was the day I became beautiful. It's I cherish motherhood and what that brings, the joy of having these little human beings that just love you so much, and watching them grow, become who they are, and having my youngest, he started doing meditation and mindfulness and things like that, and he really, really helped me through some of my darker times. Like, I was so negative and miserable on everything. He said, I want you to write down 100 things that you love. And I was like, there's no way I can't think of not even one single thing. I was so negative. And he said, well, you love me, don't you? And I said, well, yeah. And you love Dylan? And I said, yeah. And he goes, okay, well, then call me back, when you got
call me back.
100 things. And it was so amazing. By the time I got to 100, I couldn't stop writing. And it's like, where did you come from, kid?
See, I love stuff like that. I do the mindful soul boxes, and I do like rocks and crystals and things like that. And when you connect yourself to a positive level like that, you can do anything and you become unstoppable. So that is great, and I love the fact that your son has helped you do that.
Yeah. When both of them, I mean, when I feel like my batteries are low. I know I need to call my, at least get a phone call, or I need a visit, or
I need a session with my sons. They're gonna help me rejuvenate this feeling and shed this.
And they're just such a big part of who I am. I mean, I was 18 when I had my kids. I don't know if I would have developed this condition regardless, or whatever it would have been, but I may not have been able to have children if I didn't have them young when I did. So, I'm really grateful for that, and grateful that through all of my struggles and their struggles as well, because they went through them with me. They didn't have an easy life or childhood. They grew up pretty on the far end of the poverty line. I wasn't able to work very often until after I had my hysterectomy was I able to hold any kind of employment long term. So maybe those kind of struggles made them be able to be better people or be more functional.
But the trials and tribulations we go through as a child make us into who we are, and they are exactly who they were meant to be regardless. So don't beat yourself up for that, because at that time it was what it was.
They're wonderful people. So they immediately took off onto their own and have been very well independent. And one thing I told myself is, they had offered to get an apartment at one point for me. They wanted me to leave my ex-husband, and that idea was such a heartwarming idea. And at the time, it felt so good to be loved that much. But boundaries, appropriate boundaries, no matter what my problems were, those were my problems, and their life wasn't going to start out. I did not want their life to start out with that.
Okay.
Having to deal with that, because I want them to flourish. So everything does work out. And my advice for people, my number one advice, if if they feel like they can't do it and they can't make it, is, and I always write this to everybody, is to remember you are stronger than any bad day. Even if they're stacked against you.
You are stronger than any bad day. I'm going to use that. I will.
Yeah, my mom had sent me a card, and at that moment when I opened it and those words popped out, it was what I needed to hear. It really changed everything for me. So I always add that to people when I see people in the support groups that are really having struggles. I'll always add that comment at the end.
I like
it. Because it's important to know that, and to have that reaffirmed, that there is nothing that you can't make it through. And I have seen women who didn't make it through there's this Kimberly, I printed off the paperwork from the internet, she was a young lady who went to an ER and was mistreated terribly, like I had been. And she vented on social media, and she was going to hold these people accountable. But somehow, meantime, in between that, she decided to violently end her life instead. And that stuck with me because, those thoughts were there for me as well during my dark periods. I mean, I just didn't want my love for my children and my love for God. I didn't want them to suffer. And so in the end, I couldn't really do that. I wanted to live. I just didn't know if I was going to survive. It was such a bad flare. And I feel like I was really close. There was a point where my ex-husband came in. He would check on me every day to see if I was coherent. And one day he shook me and asked me if I was coherent. And I thought I responded, and I said, yeah, I'm okay. Just leave me out. I wanted to sleep. Finally, blissfully, sleep was coming to me, and I was able to sleep. But he shook me again really hard, and that made me mad. So I was going to make sure I was going to focus on him this time and really look at him to tell him. And the look of terror on his face, I'll never forget. It's like if you went to your baby and your baby wasn't breathing. That's when I knew I was in trouble. And that's the day he just flipped and roared before he went out the door. He said, I don't care if these doctors don't want to help you. If they want to just sit by and let you die, I'm not going to sit by and watch you die. And I don't even need to go there to say what had to happen after that. But I can tell you that it took over a year and a half. When I finally did get on my pain management, it took about another year and a half or 2 years for me to be able to even walk. That's how far gone I'd gotten. I couldn't hold myself up in a shower. And I really feel like my heart, everything in my body really took a toll from that time period. I'm not even, 60% of what I was.
Have you ever looked at the robotic bladder?
The what?
The robotic bladder?
I have never heard of such a thing.
Yeah.
My bladder is in very poor shape.
I looked into it years ago when it first came out. Like the Da Vinci, the robotic surgery, I had that done, but then there's an actual robotic bladder that they can put in there and take your real bladder out. But at that time, it was so new.
Bladder transplants.
I looked at that as well, and I don't know, but that was like 10 years. I don't know. My kids were young. That was years and years ago. I had my first Da Vinci, I want to say, in 2012, actually, or 11.
Oh, wow.
And then the second one I had was in 2018. But that was way back then, and they were just doing robotic bladders. So I'm sure the technology and stuff has changed. It's not.
Where are you living where you have access to this medical care?
I live in Michigan. Where do you live?
I live in Minnesota, and I always thought that we were pretty good and pretty advanced. But the most that they've done for me was she decided she wanted to down at the university try one of those bladder stimulators.
Oh, the bladder stimulators. Yeah, those are good too. Have you done one of those?
We did a trial period of it, but see, they decided when I went down there that day to have that done, they told me not to take any of my medications yet for the day.
So you were in pain and cramped up and rolled up on the.
I was in pain, and plus I didn't take my anxiety medication. And oh, by the way, you don't even get Tylenol.
Nope.
And we have 16 people, basically in here, and you're prepped with your ass up in the air, naked, and they come in and they're ready to beatbox it and want to know if can they turn on the radio and can they have music? And I'm having tremendous anxiety because they're ready to do this procedure and go into my sacroiliac nerves and inject these wires. And it was extremely, they can numb you all they want, but it was extremely painful.
Yes.
I couldn't believe that when I got there, that they didn't even give me anything to help ease your anxiety. And had I been aware of that, I wouldn't have cared if they said not to take that medication or not before I went in. I would have taken it. It was like complete torture. And, I had several procedures done down there and surgeries. And that one of the times when I woke up from my anesthesia, and I never had a bad reaction waking up from anesthesia before, I didn't even know I had been asleep. All I know is I woke up and I instantly was I was squatting on the bed that they had me rolled in, and I was like, I have to go to the bathroom right now. Where's the bedpan? And all of a sudden this guy's standing there and he's looking really confused. And he's like, oh, wait, I'll go get some help. I was like, no, I gotta go right now. Where's the bedpan? Oh, I was hurting. I want it.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized and I was like, well, wait a minute. I'm like, did I already? And I was like, why am I in so much pain? What's going on?
And this was after the procedure.
The University of Minnesota, it will try not to give, they don't want to give pain medications. I think they're running trials. Honestly, I think some of these hospitals that are for schooling as well.
Oh, yeah.
They do. Trials on people without without your information, without your acknowledgement, or understanding, or anything, because who would volunteer to go through these kinds of things without any pain medication at all?
Right. Now, my question for you is, have you
post-op surgery and all that
without any medication or anything?
With Tylenol, liquid Tylenol, IV Tylenol.
Mm-mm.
Nobody would agree to that.
No, they're not supposed to.
But they tell you, and I've had.
There's Marvocaine that they give for that. There's fentanyl that they give for that. There's morphine that they give. There's several other things. I can start naming off some drugs.
Yeah, there you got to be really careful, because there's places where they just are not treating your pain, and they will tell you that they're going to, and it will be okay before you get there, and then you get there and they hand you a gabapentin to take.
Oh, no, a gabapentin ain't gonna do nothing, especially when that's just a nerve medication, and that's an anti-seizure meds on top of that.
To work over time, but it's not for.
It's not for immediate pain, and it's not for right now. It takes 2 weeks at least to work, and blah blah blah. Get out of here! You couldn't give me that and tell me nothing.
It makes it vital.
So no. But my question for you is: have you ever had pelvic floor stimulation done?
I started doing some pelvic floor therapy stuff, and when I started all my treatments in Arkansas, I ended up going to the university, or their schooling, whatever it is, down in Little Rock, their medical, the best one that they got. And so I got some appointments and some things done like that, and I did a lot of reading, and what I found out was I was pushing to try to get every little last drop of liquid out of me, and so what I had to do was try to relax. When I read all of that stuff, I had to do everything from home. I had to learn how to do bladder cocktails from home.
Okay.
Everything from home, because it was
So that was going to be my next question, the cocktails. And then the third question was going to be, have you had any new procedures or surgeries where they've done clamps on the insides, or any other pelvic floor wall pickup or drop or anything like that?
No, but I do think that I'm going to have to go. I think I'm having some not just now, starting to get some prolapse, but in order for me to know anything about my bladder at all whatsoever, since I've come back to Minnesota, at least from the university, I had to request my records numerous times before I finally got to know. I always like to see a picture whenever I go in. Let me see what's going on inside there. I want to know everything about that organ that's causing me problems, right?
Right.
But it's like, need to know information is what I feel like they're treating.
No, you have to go get a copy of that at the radiology department in the medical field. You go to the medical records, you go to the radiology, and they will provide you a CD, and only you can get a copy of the CD. The doctors don't actually even get a copy, and the doctor can't give you a copy. Only the place that actually did the procedure for the ultrasound or x-ray or CAT scan or ultrasound could give you a hard copy.
Well,
and with that hard copy,
I got pictures from my doctor. I asked.
You can get pictures, yes, but not a hard copy. You'll get the pictures that the doctor got from the place that took the hard copies, where another doctor analyzed your stuff, sent over a diagnosis result to your doctor with the pictures and a diagnosis, where your doctor then forwards that information to you as a messenger. in a way.
Okay.
I'm sorry if I sounded rude right there, but in a way, yeah.
But that's awesome to get all this information.
But that's how.
But it will help me so much.
I've had all of those procedures done. I've even had the clamp and stuff done, and you should
What's
definitely. I don't know how to describe some of the stuff. So whenever they would go,
where they shut your urine off for a little bit so that.
No. There is some type of clamp thing that I have inside of my. So whenever they would go in and do like the robotic surgeries and stuff, they would work on multiple organs at one time. And I have some type of clamp underneath my bladder that helps sit it up or something the right way. Or I don't really know what it does. I need to look into that, to be more honest. But I've had it done a couple times whenever they've gone in, and I've had work done. And then I've also had work on the outside of my bladder where it's been lasered off and cleaned off, like, I don't know, a lot of times. So there is certain things you can do that will help. And I would recommend to look into the bladder, like the clamp start parts and all of the other stuff, because the stuff that you're describing and the pain you're describing, like I was telling you, is stuff from years ago. And now that you have a hysterectomy, you shouldn't be in that level of pain because the adenomyosis is gone. And if the interstititis is bothering you that bad, you need to get back into that urologist, and you need to figure out what your next option of treatment is.
Right. Well, see, what it is I have bleeding, and I have sometimes from the bladder.
From the ulcers.
My bladder walls are all scarred up, and it's no longer has any elasticity in it. Mm-hmm. So it's small, obviously, and when it doesn't stretch. So now there's pockets, I guess.
Yes.
I don't know what the name is for this.
Those are polio. I know what you're talking about. And those, you definitely need to continue to get in certain cocktails for those, and you need to go and get like a DNC on the inside of the bladder done for that as soon as possible. You need to get in. You definitely do.
Oh, what will they? I can't believe that my urologist. This is supposed to be the best urologist they have for this condition down here at our hospital, and I'm down in the cities. I'm really surprised that when I went in, she acts like there is nothing more that they can do.
There is.
She was leaving hydrodistensions, and that was the only thing. When I went in and I had my first hydrodistension, my bladder had been so small, I hadn't had a stream of pee for so long. Now at least I can pee a stream, you know?
Yes.
So maintaining that capacity, I feel like, depends upon my pain medications, because if I'm in pain, I can't hold. The only way
when you're in pain, there's inflammation, and when there's inflammation, you can't go pee. It's not about the pain medication. The pain medication is stopping the anti-inflammatory, and when you're swollen up, your urethra, your cord itself is swollen closed. Think about like a throat when you can't breathe and you have tonsillitis. If you have tonsillitis and you can't breathe, we're going to try to do what? Clear your airway. Well, we can't clear your urine, like where your urine's coming out, because it's swollen. So in order to keep it from not being swollen at this point, because the fact that you have those polys and those other stuff, that's what's causing extreme irritation. So anytime you already have extreme irritation and then swollenness, it's like tonsillitis in your urethra.
Yeah.
So at this point, there's nothing you can do until the swelling goes down. You can't pee. There's no way you're going to get anything out. It's swollen shut. So you're going to have to take some anti-inflammatory medication. Well, the only thing that has anti-inflammatory medication in it is a narcotic most of the time. Tylenol is not strong enough of the anti-inflammatory meds. It's only 250 milligrams of anti-inflammatory meds out of a 500 milligram pill. So again, how many of those do I have to take before I kill my liver? So
at this point,
a narco at that point is the one that has both of them in it, the pain and that, because pain is what's causing the inflammation. So you have to tackle it as a team. So there's no way a 500 milligram pill of Tylenol, which is 250 milligrams of pain and 200 milligrams of anti-inflammatory, is going to knock this problem on out. Like, it's just not going to work. Right. But the more that you get a grasp of an understanding of keeping the swelling under control and getting rid of the irritation issues, you have to get your irritation issues under control, because that's 50% of the problem. And if you don't, you're only dancing in circles until you have another breakdown. So to get ahead of that, you definitely...
You are more educated than any doctor that I have ever spoken to you no more
Well, thank
about
you.
what is going on, and that's what makes it so hard to navigate, to figure out how to help yourself.
You have to know your body, and you have to know these red flags and say, okay, I know it, but now what am I going to do about it? Because knowing that, you know, you're in a race is like, okay, well, if I don't get to run it, how am I going to win? So you have to outthink your competitor, which is the disease, and you have to try to get ahead of it. And the only way to get ahead of it is know its next move. Well, you know its next move. As soon as it's swelling happens and pain happens, you know what's going to come next. So you have to take your medications before the pain happens, not when you're in pain, but before you're in pain. Literally like clockwork at this point for your body, because you have secondary issues. Not every interstititis patient is like that, but because you have the irritation on the bladder wall, you have no bladder wall left, you have the polys, you have too many other issues that the minute any irritation does come, an inflammatory issue, you're just you're over the top now, because you can't handle anymore, because your body suppresses all these other daily things every day, that now the rest of those things, you're just going to blow you over the minute any one of them happen. You're like off with their head, because it's extreme now, because your body's already suppressed so much. There's no more room.
Right. Yes, I definitely feel that all the time. And I feel I'm going to be ending up with having to have bladder removal surgery or something.
You could do several other options, but if your doctor is not... Okay, let's just...
rebuilding or, adding to because of the...
Well, yeah, but hold on a second. So here are my theories. So if your doctor is only trained to do these procedures, is only trained with these medications, and these are, let's just use Girl Scouts. These are the Girl Scout cookies we sell. These are the options that we proceed. If you're not going to concoct a new recipe because I fall in a different category, and you're not willing to try these new options that are new and innovative, and you're going to stay in old technology, well, first of all, interstititis isn't old technology. Interstititis has only been around for how many years? Like the disease itself as a name. So at this point, we're always innovating. And if you don't continue to innovate and keep up with technology, because technology is the only thing that's going to save us, at the end of the day, that's what guinea pigs, that's what we all are guinea pigs. So at the end of the day, all of us are helping contribute to a better version of a future. And if they don't integrate, you're going to stay back in guinea pig phase forever. And if you don't find a doctor that's willing to become, up to technology and try new options that you're willing to try, that also works with you, and if traveling to a better doctor is an option, hey, if going to that doctor, 3 times a year is all you can do because of how far they are, find a secondary doctor that you do kind of mess with, that will do certain things that you can go to in between. But the things that doctor's not willing to do, you can have more than one doctor on your team that do the same thing, but work in different regions. So that way, and work together. As long as they communicate together and you're updating your records together, my advice to you would be to find what is out there, what's next, what technology is next. And I would look at other versions of surgeries and things you can do to fix what's going on now before you have to actually replace, because you're not at a replace point. But
how do you feel about, have you done, injections into your into your nerves or anything?
No,
like that?
I stayed away from all of the injections.
That's the only thing that I've been offered from at every angle. I had a doctor that I found that was on the ICA thing from years ago, but he was on a YouTube special, and he was from Minnesota here, and he actually called me, and he wanted to do some sort of injections that would, I don't know if it would affect like vulvodynia or...
Okay, yes, I know about that.
I don't have any of those issues that I could per se. And he said,
so you have no sexual issues or sexual discomfortness pleasing?
I do flare up from that, but I don't necessarily have pain.
Okay.
On that area.
Okay.
Just to have pain.
But they're assuming you do based on the inflammation then.
Yes,
so they're categorizing you as
a... So that's what he said that kind of helped, and he told me that, well, I could have that and just not realize it and just have less sensitivity or, different things. But I really am leery of injecting and having needles anywhere near my nerves.
That's the same way I feel, because my nerve damage is what got me here, and to some of my other diseases that you don't have that I do have. So nerve damage to me. Not only that, but what happens when I quit taking these injections and my body has to alkaline back to its normal state and go back to its normal depletion? How will my body handle that up and down period? So I don't know, because I've never done them. But what I know is my own fears and what holds me back. But what I will tell you is that for your case, because your bladder, you haven't done the procedures that I have done. If you look into those clamps or whatever else, I can also pull. I have a lot of my files I just recently got, and I've been going through a lot of them now. And I never really focused on all of my bladder surgeries because I had so many bigger issues every time we were going in, that my bladder was so minute that this battle was a big battle as well. Wow. Don't get me wrong. Wow. But the stories that I could give right now are so mind-blowing that you'd be like, oh yeah, no wonder why you weren't worried. But I don't want to take over, because right now this is like for you, you know? Right. But I definitely feel like that the surgeries I have for my bladder changed all of the issues we discussed with my bladder, and multiple times. And every time I had surgery for my bladder, I never regretted it. I never complained about it. And it was never an issue, because every time there was an issue, we constantly addressed it every time we went in for whatever other operation I was having. So I was constantly having surgeries, and whenever we're in there, go ahead and fix that on up. Tidy that girl up, fix this, do that. Yeah, go ahead. Okay, but just make sure we're going to stay focused on the task at hand, though. But we need all of this done, so let's just do it all while we're in there, because I don't want to have like 3 surgeries in a couple weeks. I just rather have them all today, and let's just do it together.
Right, yes, there
you know what I mean? So if you can find something that's similar to that aspect that would help you. But right now, you already got rid of the adenomyosis, and it's just endometriosis. So if you just focus on your urologist that specializes in IC, or one that specializes in pain management.
I might switch my urologist, because like you said, if you don't feel like they're working for you.
Right. They work for you. You know, and without you, they don't get their bills paid.
If it's not working out, then there's no reason I have to stay there. And that's a good point.
And every time you go, you gain this sense of bullshitness, because I hate this, and you manifest these feelings of sense of, oh, he's this, and I have to explain that, or I have to prove and provide and overextend my, describe the issues. I shouldn't have to do any of that with my doctor when they're here for that and this and that, you know? So if you feel that feeling, how can you get better when you're constantly, every time you go to the doctors, you're put in this sense of negativity over it? It's going to continue to get negative, because you're going there with negativity in your heart, brain, and mind and soul. So if you don't go there with, oh, I can't wait to go see this doctor, I can't wait to see what she's going to tell me and how she's going to help me, even that feeling alone will help you with the less of tension. And so when you go in there, she's able to get the best reading possible, because your body is not so tense. When your body is tense and your nerves are acting up or are crazy because you're not comfortable, it's kind of just like having sex with someone you don't want to have sex with. How are you going to you're just not. Your body isn't going to let this go down the way that it should, so the results aren't going to always affect, the way that they should, and the treatment plans you're not comfortable with, so you're not going to follow through with them, or you're not going to do them to the best of your ability. So, if you feel comfortable, you'll do better, and you'll act better, and you'll follow treatment plans better, because you believe in their plan, because you've developed it together.
Right, that's so important, and to have that trust too. With your doctor.
And if you can't have that trust, and you don't feel so happy when you go to your doctor, and you don't feel excited to see that doctor, then that's
I love my primary care doctor.
Well, then that's the doctor that you get to start doing a few tests and do a few things, and then she can help you, take those new tests and find a urologist that could work for you. But honestly, that's going to be your best bet. Go to your primary care provider, have her just restart a couple things where you left off at, have her get your lab work done, get your blood work done, get your, a couple other tests done, run an ultrasound on a couple things, then take all of that information and go find a new urologist, and one that specializes in IC, though, because if they don't specialize in IC, not all urologists even understand IC. It's a whole entity in itself that is unexplained, that took years to get a disease, a diagnosis, because it's so hard.
There's a new urologist, the gyno urologist.
Yes, that's where I've gotten most of my procedures done and through, because
that's what I want to find.
But
yes, I want to find one of them,
But they have to specialize in IC as well, as the gyno part, because a gyno-urologist is different than a urologist with IC, because most gyno problems come from babies from having problems from C-sections or prolapsed bladders that came through the uterus, or like there's all these other issues that come into those entities.
Yeah.
So if the gyno,
I do have slit prolapse.
If the gyno doctor does not specialize in IC, then you're on another guinea pig mission, and you're hopping from guinea pig cage to guinea pig cage, trying to find the best owner or master. Like, I wouldn't do that.
Yeah, I feel passed from doctor to doctor.
I would definitely get on the mission of finding a gyno urologist that specializes in IC. And from there, you should be able to do. But if you already have a hysterectomy, the gyno part isn't really the problem.
Isn't really the issue.
Yeah, I really feel
that's good
that
information right there.
Yeah, so I definitely think you should stick with a urologist that specializes in IC, that you're comfortable, and that's really what you need. The comfortability level is your only barrier. I don't think it's the gyno problem. I definitely feel it's your non-comfortable level, and the fact that doctor isn't up to technology and isn't offering the services you're hoping for, so you're stuck in a stupid like loophole where you're constantly passed around the same treatment options back and forth. Well, that doesn't work. Try plan A, plan B, plan C. Go back to A, B, C, A, B, C, A, C, B, A, B, B, C. Which way you want it? A? You want A again? No, C? Okay. So there's no other D or E. What about F, G, H, K, Z, anything? But nope, we don't try that here. So, okay, I'm going to go where they do, because A, B, and C isn't for me. Thank you. Bye-bye.
You're right.
So,
exactly.
And that's the problem. But honestly, I really think that that's where we should end this at, and that we should wrap this up. And I appreciate everything. And I really want to look forward to following up with you. I really think that if you switch to a urologist that you're comfortable with, that offers treatment plans that you're hoping for, then, you really can't go wrong.
Really, really exciting and interesting, some of that stuff that you mentioned.
Yeah, and you should switch to, so on a couple of my old, if you go through when I air this, there are previous ones, and I don't remember the girl's name, but on the briefing of where the description of like where I tell a little bit about the person, she does prescribe, I want to say it was something berry, Newberry or something. There was a couple of other things that they prescribed, and she is a nurse lady, and when she prescribed that, elderberry. No, I used elderberry. There was that and something else. But those really helped a lot of people with interstititis, and a few other girls mentioned it. So you should also look into that, because that helps with the ulcers and the burning and the other issues that you have, where some of the other girls don't always have that. But most of the time that comes from, you can also help fix that naturally with certain vitamins and remedies that I'm not fully aware of, that I haven't personally played with, but some of the other girls in the other podcasters have. So I would re-listen to some of those.
Go back and look at those.
Yeah, because they might have more information on what their trials and tribulations were when they were trying, where I didn't have, I had a doctor that just was surgery happy, and surgery happy was all I did. And, cocktail happy with the bladder cocktails and pelvis wall therapy. But yeah, so I look forward to doing a follow-up with you, Danielle, and thank you for your time.
Yep, thank you.
Until next time, join and sprinkle for some love with a cause.